Welcome to This Week in Money. I'm Jim Goddard. Today, Ross Clark from chartsandmarkets.com runs down the major markets. It seems if it has the letters AI in it, people are throwing money at it. It reminds Ross of the .com, crypto, and cannabis investment fads. He checks out crude, gold, and the U.S. and Canadian dollars. Editor of Rick's Picks, Rick Ackerman, says customer service and reliable products are a thing of the past. He says dangerous times are ahead for commercial real estate and be careful of AI mania. Publisher of the realestatetiming.com newsletter, Robert Campbell, joins us from San Diego. He says past earnings for REITs don't count because they don't take into account rising interest rates. Plus, at the end of the show, we'll have a company showcase update from RecycLiCo CFO, Shaheem Ali. We'll talk to Ross Clark right after this.
RecycLiCo, making lithium-ion last forever. RecycLiCo's patented recycling process achieves up to 100% recovery of battery metals from lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, and aluminum. RecycLiCo Battery Materials Incorporated trades on the TSX Venture AMY, on the OTCQB AMY-ZF, and Frankfurt ID4. For more information, visit RecycLiCo.com or phone us at 778-574-4444. RecycLiCo, making lithium-ion last forever.
Welcome to This Week in Money, the source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Ross Clark from chartsandmarkets.com, where you'll find insightful market commentary and timely technical analysis. You can find him on Twitter at ChartsByRoss. Welcome back to the show.
Good to be with you, Jim.
Ross, the markets for the week, it seems if it had the word AI attached to it, money just poured in. And does this not remind us of the .com?
Or how many other items in the last 20 years? You know, .com, we all remember that one, which ran from, 95 right through till early 2000 and really gained that momentum in the last part of 99. There was a bit of a hiccup in 98 with long-term capital and all, but other than that, there was that big run for the .coms. And, you know, there's always a bull market somewhere out there. And for this last year or so, it's been pretty darn quiet. There's been a lot of money that's been just sitting on the sidelines. And the one sector that has been showing life steadily since the beginning of the year has been over in the NASDAQ. The Qs, we've been looking at those, have been just outpacing significantly. You know, you compared that to what was going on with the Russell 2000, the S&P or the Dow, which just weren't doing much at all. And then this week you get the earnings out of NVIDIA, and, they just blow everybody out of the water. But, when we look back, these sector rotations, they just go on over time. It's not all that long ago. We go back just 2 years here, and gold and silver and crude oil were making big runs. Year before that was all about renewables and recycles. 6 months before that it was crypto. Before that it was cannabis. So the market always is looking for a bull market, and the money's going to move in, and the broader and more acceptable a category is for the institutional players, the more sustained the moves tend to be. So, we look at what's been going on with Apple and Microsoft and now NVIDIA. These things just, they attract huge blots of money, and they will run until they run out of steam, and then we know what the back end of them is like, and it's just a question of how far they will go. AI has been talked about as being the fastest growth item, even outpacing what happened back with the advent of the Internet and the growth of that. So who knows how long this thing will run? And clearly there will be leaders, and there will be a lot of small players that decide that they want to add AI to their name in some way or another. and a big number of those, probably the greatest number, will end up failing. So one must be very careful when one gets on a hot item such as we're seeing right now.
What's happening with gold?
Gold, a good correction that we've been having here, and been looking for this to carry us down into a seasonal low into June, maybe early July. Correction's been pretty decent at this point. You know, we given back half of the run up that we've seen since the February low. Getting a little oversold right now on the daily, so I think you can get a bit of a bounce. But anything as we get towards 1900 or under is going to start to look pretty attractive. Silver market along the same lines, been giving back more than the gold has, and probably, you know, we're around the $23 level right now. I think that anything that approaches 22 is going to become interesting. And you know, if we look at the participation of the miners, the silver stocks, the gold stocks, they've really been underperforming bullion coming off the top here in this last month and a half. And I'd like to see them become really good and oversold at some point in this next 6 to 8 weeks. And at which point we'll just look for some decent buy signals. So as I say, anything 1900 or under is sort of a ballpark number that I'm going to be looking at for the gold market.
We keep hearing gasoline prices are going to be going up over the next few weeks. What's happening with crude?
Crude is just sitting here in this trading range that we've had now for the better part of, what is it, got to be 4 or 5 months at this point. Seasonally, we should be expecting a low fairly soon. Been looking for hopefully just one more final low below that $64 spike that we had a few weeks back, and also back in March. That if we were to spike down and make a reversal, I could be really interested in that one, because the type of correction that we've had, I'll call it more than a correction, from $120 down, this break ideally would be setting up for one more final low, and then we can end up with a fairly big multi-month rally out of there. But for now, just biding our time. There's nothing exciting to see in there as of yet. The market that continued to stay under pressure has been the natural gas market. It got the little spike up, as it likes to do in bear markets, a spike up into out of April into May, and got first level of resistance. I think we're down enough now to say that it's into support, and there might be another trade off the low here as far as the nat gas is concerned. But once again, that's a product that usually the rallies are fairly short-lived, so it's one that the nimble traders should be looking at.
What's going on with the U.S. and Canadian dollars?
Good rally here in this U.S. dollar. Been happy to see this one, but I would say a little bit ahead of itself right now. We're up over 104. This is up from the lows of 101 on the dollar index. And good support, I would say, on a bit of a pullback in maybe the 102.5 to 103 level. But trend is definitely changed to the upside after this good double bottom that we've had from February through the March-April lows. And resistance at this point is probably going to be seeing it up as we get towards 106.
Ross, thank you so much for the update.
Pleasure to be with you, Jim.
My guest has been Ross Clark from chartsandmarkets.com. Find him on Twitter at ChartsByRoss. Coming up, Rick Ackerman, next on This Week in Money.
Always consult your investment professional before making any investment decision. Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com. This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
Welcome back. My guest is Rick Ackerman, editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks, his website, rickackerman.com. He's speaking to us from South Florida. Welcome back to This Week in Money.
Thanks for inviting me on, Jim. It is always a pleasure to chat with you.
Do the stock markets look like they're heading higher?
Yes. What else would you like to talk about? Just kidding. You know that in all our discussions, I have to come across as probably the most bearish bear you can imagine. And even when I talk about deflation in the country, reverting to a barter state, the economy, and, we'll be wondering where to get food, water, and fuel. And all those things are just slowly evolving now. You have big companies doing layoffs. You've got a very radically reverted yield curve that we've just come through, and that has never erred in predicting a recession. So we're going to have a recession and a real estate collapse, and all the big companies are laying off, and we're really, the economy is going to hell. But I am hugely bullish on the stock market. We know that it's a crazy, loco animal that doesn't have any coordinates that connect up with the real world, and that's just what we're going to see.
Why do you think there's such a disconnect between the stock markets and what people call the real world?
Because the stock market is really just mass psychosis actualized in a way that makes a lot of people a lot of money. It doesn't exist to raise capital. It doesn't exist to discount earnings or any of that crap. It's just a big, sleazy carnival game. So when we expect rational behavior from it, we should only think of rational in terms of how that connects up with the greed that's endemic to I'm going to say Western civilization, but it's not a real thinking, living, breathing animal. It's just a creature of mass psychosis.
You feel consumers are not getting the service that they deserve, and what should be reliable products no longer are. Can you maybe explain that?
Well, if you look at all the institutions in this country, how corrupt and dysfunctional they are, it shouldn't be a surprise that permeates the whole service and retail sector. You go to even the biggest companies are really kind of they're devolving so that they become just kind of as corrupt and sleazy and dysfunctional as everything else. And I would cite several examples among the biggest companies in the country, in the world, actually. One of them, I'm not even going to mention the airlines. We all know how the airlines have gone and what kind of service you get and what you pay for it. But to take just a few examples, FedEx has been a great company for a lot of years, but and to kind of branch out to have more places where you can leave FedEx packages, they've in a local instance, they've teamed up with Walgreens. So you go into a Walgreens to drop off, as I did this morning, a FedEx package, and there's just one girl behind the counter. There are 4 people ahead of me in line and 3 people behind me, and she's got to somehow just leave the cash register for a little bit to handle my package. And so that's how FedEx is operating at least in some cases. If you take, there are just any number of examples. If you take Amazon has built a big operation there just by giving customers good service, good this, good that. But I think that they've kind of caved to the temptation to just grind out as much business as they can, and the heck with the principles. I bought a flashlight for $35 from Amazon. It was made by a fly-by-night Asian company called GoRite, Goreit, and there are probably about 70 or 80% 5-star reviews, but it's for a 1-star product. Now, you probably remember when we were kids, you buy an ever-ready flashlight that came with a lifetime guarantee. It was $5. But now you buy a $35 flashlight from GoRight on Amazon, and I put it in my glove compartment, and it hadn't been there for even a year, probably a few months. When I need it for the emergency, that the reason that I kept it in the glove box to begin with last night, it didn't work. And I thought, well, I guess I should have charged it up. So when I got home, first thing I did was charge the flashlight and discovered it wouldn't take a charge. So you go to the 1-star reviews, and you see that the few people that left 1-star reviews, the battery lost its charge relatively quickly and ultimately its ability to charge. All right. So you call Amazon. Well, you look on the site first, and the site says, well, you may have to visit the manufacturer's website to get more warranty information. So I do. I search. I click on a thing that says check the vendor's site, and the first 50 listings that come up on Google are all Amazon listings. So there doesn't appear to be a website for this company. And when you call Amazon and say, well, I'm having trouble finding the company, they do their own lookup, and they discover that GoRight is just manufactured. There's a parent company, and they do have a website. But at this point, unsurprisingly, there's no information. There's no contact information. There's no click here for help. There's no phone number. So here is Amazon representing, allowing this company to build its business on these most surely fraudulent reviews. And they're always talking about how we're really trying to clean that up. We're trying to get rid of the phony reviews. But here they've got a real piece of garbage, the GoRight flashlight. And it's Amazon's choice. And with this 30-day warranty, if something goes wrong, even they're saying, well, yeah, we don't see a way of getting hold of this company. So I've escalated that with their support, but it's not really a question of getting the refund or the flashlight replaced. It's more just trying to find someone at Amazon who will answer the question, how did a sleazy operation like GoRight get to be Amazon's choice in the $30 to $40 flashlight category? So there we have it. So we're really third world. The airports in this company are disgraceful even by standards of I won't say Somalia, but certainly India, Pakistan, many other countries. We should be embarrassed by them. And so here we are. We're the Roman Empire, probably sometime, well, we're in the, definitely in the 5th century or AD. So there you go, Jim.
Well, I'm sure the people going to the Colosseum at one point complained that the lark's tongues and aspect just weren't like they were in the old days.
In the old days, right.
It's capitalism and the internet turning into capitalism 10x.
Well, capitalism's definitely, it's got a flawed model out there online, I guess the internet began with a lot of idealistic hopes that it would decentralize business, it would allow people to sort of operate on their own. And I can say that for myself, it's worked that way. There's no way I could do Rick's Picks the old way, trying to mail things through the USPS. But the decentralization dream has died. Even places, even experiments where they tried to kind of atomize a network and shut out your pitch if you were doing a lot of business. In other words, the companies that were doing big business would be, I won't say banned, but they get their bandwidth gets constricted somewhat. And they discovered that just for prospective users to find their way around the network, there needed to be kind of central internet hubs, companies that organize things so that you could find all these decentralized operators. And you've got big companies that have consolidated so much business. And of course, Amazon now is competing against all these places I mentioned earlier, any place with a counter and somebody behind it where you know what kind of ineptitude you're going to encounter. You know, at Home Depot today, this must be typical for everybody's experienced this. There are two lines. You can get one or the other, and you pick the one where there's just one guy with one package, right? So he's there for 5 minutes, and you're thinking, well, I'll move over to the other line. But then the woman on the cash register for the other line, and it's just me at that point, it's a line of one, she goes over to help the guy whose cash register has gone haywire or something, or maybe it hadn't, maybe he just couldn't figure it out. So now we've got, and that's so common where you know, there are more people behind the counter than there are in line. That's everywhere, even McDonald's in particular. So that's the competition for these web operators, and it's no surprise really that companies like Amazon are just sort of, they're eating everybody else's lunch, and you can see the alternatives just getting swallowed up. We're going to have to buy everything from Amazon at some point, and the point is coming pretty soon, when one amenity that we've all enjoyed, used, loved, is department stores. If you go into a Macy's and just see how Macy's is run these days on its way to bankruptcy, you can see the future.
With significant division on many fronts in the U.S., could civil war be ahead?
Yes, it is. I don't sense that things are getting any better, really, and you know, I keep losing friends. I lost one more last week, an old friend, and I just asked a question, not meaning to provoke a political discussion. I just said, look, I'm all the time seeing videos of Biden stumbling on this and stumbling that. He's an embarrassment every time he gets on a stage to address people from the teleprompter. He can't even handle a teleprompter. So I ask her, I say, look, do you see any of this on the news, your news sources? You know, evidence that the president is beyond senility. He's an absolute disgrace and an embarrassment. So she says, and this even caught me by surprise. She says, well, you know, that stuff can be doctored. That's probably what the Republicans are doing. You know, they're doctoring all these videos of Biden stumbling around, you know, when he's not busy sniffing someone's hair. So we're no longer friends. And I think it's just going to get worse. And someone sent me a link to, it was a Dr. Martin, who is, he's amazing. He's putting out a case concerning the COVID, the vaccine hoax. And he's so blunt about it. He's so blunt about really criminal conspiracy that has gone on with this vaccine since, for the last 30 plus years. And you can hear this guy speak with the exclamation points when he makes the various points that he does to document an airtight case that the jab is really the biggest, most costly in terms of human lives, criminal misaction that we've ever recorded. And the way he punctuates the various points that he makes, he's basically saying, go ahead, you know, make my day, try to find fault with what I just said. And of course, not being able to find fault, the news instruments of the usual suspects, the Washington Post and the New York Times, they treat this guy like a pariah. So I'm thinking, do I send this link? It's really, it's probably out there on YouTube. You can find it. Just say, you know, Dr. Martin's recent talk, and he documents it. I mean, it's brilliant, really. He puts it out there so bluntly that no one would dare challenge him, and no one does. And instead, they just say, well, this guy's just some kind of nut job. But I'm wondering, do I send this link to friends who have said, look, I don't want to hear it. I don't want you to communicate with me anymore. I don't want any of your, you know, your right-wing claptrap. Just keep it to yourself. And I'm thinking, just maybe this one last time, I put something in the subject header, such as, you know, you're receiving this email because you were a former friend whose IQ I would estimate at 140 or above, and maybe you can understand this, because you're walking, from an intellectual standpoint, you're walking through life with your fly open. But without being insulting about it, this video is something that everybody should see. It's conclusive and irrefutable in the same way that Hunter's laptop is, those things. So if the lefties still can't get the message, if they still can't face up to the truth, I don't see any possibility of avoiding an escalation of hostility, we're going to have a civil war.
Are commercial mortgage-backed securities and the commercial real estate market signaling danger ahead?
Danger. You got to be kidding. I mean, we're so pumped beyond what we were in the 2007, 2008 episode. It's like full steam ahead, and we're already getting the signs of implosion in the speculative part of the market where, the big guys, big private equity and companies like BlackRock, they not only bought spec housing, they actually built homes to rent. Rent to whom? Well, manifestly people who can't quite afford to buy their own home. So they're all bad credit risks. And it's shaping up to be a disaster. The commercial real estate market it's tapped out. Whatever you see happening in San Francisco, which seems to be the queen for a day story, the same thing's happening in New York, except even bigger size. So, the cities are in huge trouble. I'm going to qualify that, though. Everybody hears a story about you got to step over the feces and the bodies on the streets of San Francisco. But I talked with someone there who owns some real estate, commercial and residential, and he said the neighborhoods are still in pretty good shape. The neighborhood character of San Francisco is still vibrant, and Golden Gate Park. I lived in San Fran for 22 years and really enjoyed it then. But one of the things I enjoyed most was Golden Gate Park, and he told me that the park has not only been maintained pretty well, but it's been somewhat upgraded with some of that high tech money. So. But anyway, the cities are in pretty bad shape, and you can see what's happening in Chicago, certainly, and Philadelphia. And I guess you can only say that all these cities are getting the leadership they deserve.
The ongoing tug of war between the U.S. dollar and inflation, what do you see ahead?
It can only be deflation ultimately. And yes, we're still experiencing quite wicked consumer inflation, and it's hard to predict how far. You can say when it will stop, and that will be when the stock market finally gives up. When it hits its high and starts coming down, nothing. You won't be able to inflate anything, even consumer prices. Everybody's going to be cast into a state of penury, or as I mentioned earlier, maybe barter. So it's hard really to see. It may sound illogical for me to be talking about deflation with so much inflation maybe still in the pipeline, but the debt part of deflation, the actual trigger, it can't be avoided. We've got debt in the form of a global derivatives market that aggregates to more than $2 quadrillion. So whatever the central banks, the pissants, can throw against it, it's not gonna have much impact. So when I talk about deflation, it's really it'll be a precipitous event. It'll be, your black swan event, and it's not something that's going to sort of evolve in a way that we can cope with it from the current consumer inflation.
Is credit being constricted, and what could that mean for the economy?
Well, it's being constricted certainly to what it was before, where any company could borrow almost for nothing for any purpose. So, we've got interest rates. The administered interest rates are up at the point where borrowing is constricted simply because who the heck can you can't get into a 6%. Anybody who takes a 6 or 7% mortgage, whatever it is now, with the prospect of a top in real estate prices, you got to be nuts. You got to be nuts. It's like 2007 and 8 on steroids. So, credit is being constricted. And of course, we had an inversion of the yield curve, which it's never made a mistake in predicting a recession. Whenever the yield curve is inverted, recession is followed. It's sometimes difficult to predict how long the lag time will be. But this time we've had a very radical inversion of the yield curve. And of course, we still haven't had anything that officialdom would acknowledge as a recession. But it's surely coming, and it is likely to be commensurate with the excesses of the inversion itself. So that's what we're headed for.
AI mania. Are we going to see all this money loaded into artificial intelligence only to see those companies collapse like they did during the high-tech mania of the 1980s?
Well, I get most of my AI stuff from Wired, and they are sort of bonkers with it. They put out 2 or 3 AI stories every day, and even I'm starting to feel like my head is spinning from all the things that they're talking about. One was that the AI leaves an interesting hole for hackers to operate in. It's called indirect. They're not taking over your computer, but they do it through websites that you might be directed to by an AI bot. And the cool thing about this particular hack is that the command comes from whatever page you're looking at, but you can't see it. It might be a white on white text. It's invisible to you, but of course the server that's sending you the page, it does see it. So it'll send you to some page and you're going to get in trouble. But more broadly speaking, that there's to say that AI is controversial is to really understate it, and you can kind of imagine where it could go if it ran amok. You've got HAL 9000 telling you, Dave, open the pod doors. But I was yesterday. I sold a car to someone. It was an old Heap that I'd owned for years, and he couldn't get it started. It's an old Lexus. So I came over, not with many tools, but I had a jumper, a booster box that puts out a lot of amps, and I hooked it up and discovered the battery was fine, and the fuses all looked pretty good to me, and yet it still wouldn't start. So I'm looking for some YouTube stuff on Lexus starter motors, and the one that I found starts out with, well, I've taken out the starter and now we can start to work on it or with it. And I'm thinking, well, buddy, I'd certainly like to see the 45 minutes, even with the right tools, that it took you to get that starter out of there. But it occurred to me that with good illustrations and good diagnostics, step-by-step diagnostics, pretty much anybody could be a decent mechanic, allowing for the fact that however good you are, you're going to bloody your knuckles, and it's no fun to wrench a bolt off, and if you drop a little screw down one of the cylinders or something when you've got the head off, you're experiencing that serendipitous side of mechanics. But there's so many things, and when you get at the high end of what AI can instruct you to do exactly, it could be brain surgery. So there's a lot of things that are going to come to fruition with AI, and it really will put a lot of people out of jobs. But just knowing human nature the way we do, I don't think there's reason to be optimistic that AIs will fulfill the promising part of the kind of the very constructive part of its promise quite so well as the diabolical side that we care not to imagine.
Rick, thank you so much for being on This Week in Money.
Well, indeed a pleasure, Jim. I know we didn't talk entirely about money, but just keep that in mind. The stock market is, I was going to say, there she blows, but it's pretty obvious today that that's what she's doing. Nobody needs me to tell them that the market is going crazy, loco, psychotic, nuts. So anyway, again, I enjoyed connecting with your audience, and I look forward to our next chat.
Rick is the editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks, his website, rickackerman.com. Coming up, Robert Campbell, next on This Week in Money.
RecycLiCo, making lithium-ion last forever. RecycLiCo's patented recycling process achieves up to 100% recovery of battery metals from lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, and aluminum. RecycLiCo Battery Materials Incorporated trades on the TSX Venture AMY, on the OTCQB AMY.ZF, and Frankfurt ID4. For more information, visit RecycLiCo.com or phone us at 778-574-4444. RecycLiCo, making lithium-ion last forever.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
Welcome back. My guest is Robert Campbell, author of Timing the Real Estate Market and the Campbell Real Estate Timing Letter. You can find him online at realestatetiming.com. He's speaking to us from San Diego. Bob, welcome back to This Week in Money.
Thank you very much, Jim. It's always fun.
When is the next issue of the Campbell Real Estate Timing Letter going to come out?
It'll come out July 15th. The most current issue was just published May 15th. I publish it once every 2 months.
So what kind of stuff can people find in it?
They can go to realestatetiming.com, just like it sounds, realestatetiming.com. Learn a little more about me, a little more about my timing letter, what I do, and they can decide for themselves if they need that information.
Does your book, Timing the Real Estate Market, cover times like this where interest rates rise and home prices do not have an immediate corresponding drop?
Sure. In fact, of the 5 key indicators that I follow and that I identify in my book, one of which is interest rates, and that's the least predictive of all 5 of future home values, because real estate prices can go up during rising markets, and they can go down during falling markets. The reason I include that real interest rates is that when interest rates are really important is when you're in a rising market, housing prices are rising, because of a number of other factors other than interest rates, and all of a sudden the Fed initiates monetary policy where interest rates fall, then that's just super. That's just a super adrenaline rush to the real estate market. That's when you're going to really get rapid price appreciation. But during the last 2 downturns, for example, in the United States, the downturn from in the 1990s downturn and in the 2006 through 2012 downturn, mortgage rates in the United States fell 2 to 3 percentage points, and that didn't stop the decline. So there's a bit of an art to this.
Can the constriction of credit, also known as quantitative tightening, do more damage to the housing market and the economy than rising interest rates?
Well, that is rising interest rates. Yeah. Quantitative tightening means that as opposed to creating new money, they're taking money from the economy out of the market to cool it off. So yes, quantitative tightening, during periods of quantitative tightening, that is not typically a good time to own assets, and during quantitative easing, it is a good time.
Does U.S. debt matter anymore?
Yeah, it always matters. Now it matters even more than ever because of its size, and that's what makes things worse and worse. Is the larger the debt load and rising interest rates, the more prone you are to an economic crisis. Because right now, I think the interest rate on the $31 or $32 trillion worth of national debt is around, $850-900 billion a year. That, if you were to look back 5 years ago, that was half of that. So here we are. We have to keep interest rates rising to fight inflation. And the bigger the debt goes, and that debt gets marked to the market, pretty soon the servicing the debt is going to cost over $1 trillion a year, which will exceed the amount of money spent on U.S. defense. So yeah, it's a really big deal. Debt is always a big deal, and that's why I'm telling my followers right now that what you want to do is deleverage, get out of debt whenever you can, and don't buy things you don't need with money you don't have, like going on vacation or buying some, $80,000 car with a $1,200 a month payment when the car you have right now should work perfectly fine for the next 3 or 4 years. You want to deleverage, get out of debt, start saving money, because the opportunities to use that money to make money, will be approaching in the years ahead.
Is the U.S. in or headed for recession, and how long can recessions last?
Well, we've had recession indicators going off for the last 15 months. And, inverted yield curve, that when the 3-month went below the 10-year, that typically, that's the most reliable recession indicator in the history of mankind. Well, that happened 15 months ago, and we still don't have a recession. Other leading indicators are all this flashing recession warnings, like, okay, we're having a recession. But the one that I stopped sharing those with my followers, because that something's happening where they're not working. But last month, in the last issue, I shared an indicator that I found fascinating, and that's growth in M2 money supply. And so what happened then is, during the COVID period, that they increased the money supply, at 100 miles an hour. And what happened? They created $6 trillion worth of new money, newly created money, and there was no new supply to pick that up. There weren't more houses, more cars, so that's why inflation went through the roof. Now they're slamming on the brakes, to slow down not only slow down the growth of money creation, that M2 money supply, which includes currency and loans made to customers, that's down 4.5% year over year. That's the first time that's happened since the 1930s, since 1929. And prior to that, there was 3 other times that happened. Each time that it turned into a financial crisis where unemployment soared. So, yeah, I think we're heading into that's why I shared that with my followers. Yeah, we are definitely heading into hard economic times. So get ready for it. Be prepared. That start saving money instead of spending it. Reduce your leverage and just hunker down.
Are food shortages causing price inflation?
The shortages by themselves are not a cause of inflation. By my definition, and by the simplest definition of what's inflation. What causes inflation is too much money chasing too few goods. That's that Milton Friedman said that, and I know some people disagree, but that's the purest form of inflation. And that's exactly what happened, during the COVID period, when they created $6 trillion worth of money and credit and no new supply of anything, and prices went through the roof. So do food shortages cause inflation? Yes, but that's only temporary. What causes inflation is all of a sudden money keeps growing, and money keeps growing relative to the amount of food available, and that's what drives food prices up, more reliably than just some fluke artificial shortage.
Are we likely to see a yin and a yang in automobile prices?
That's a really good question, and I don't have an answer to that. I mean, the automobile prices, back prior to COVID, I think you could buy a new car. The average price of a new car was $34,000, and 2 years later it went up to $54,000. They've come down a little, but not much. Not much. So you can't forecast, what's going to happen to this. How much new money are they going to keep creating, which will keep inflating these prices?
How many times earnings is California real estate selling for now, and how many times earnings would it make it affordable, and how many times earnings do we usually see at the bottom of housing market?
Well, instead of times earnings, because times earnings can be a misleading term, because that doesn't factor interest rates into it. Let's say historically, you look at them and say, historically, housing prices in California sell at three times household incomes. Okay, now, what's the interest rate? Is the interest rate, 15%, like it was during 1981, or was it, 3% like it was in 2022? Because that makes a big difference, affordability. So what I like to look at is the affordability factor more than anything, that factors both the interest rates and the price of housing relative to incomes. And with respect to California, that ratio of housing affordability, housing became less affordable during the last run-up than it was during the 2000, the run-up that created the bust in 2006. So in other words, this downturn, based on affordability, which is really, really important. I mean, you can't buy what you can't afford, and that's what stops housing markets from rising, is that this bust has the potential to be as big, if not bigger, than the last bust.
California is having significant social problems caused by governments, and people are moving out of California. Is this a recipe for high-end real estate to collapse?
I wouldn't say so much the high end, because people that have money, they can afford to live in California. They're not going to move to North Dakota just to get a lower housing price. So they can afford to live here. It's the middle class and businesses that are moving out. The poor are stuck. They can't afford to do anything, right? They're in Section 8 housing and getting food stamps, and where are they going to move to? They can move somewhere else, and they're still going to be poor. But the middle class, at least here in California, that they can move to a place where the household income won't change, like Texas or Arizona, and they could buy the same house as they can in California for like 60% discount. So they're doing it. I mean, that's just the economics of it. But there's this far-left woke rhetoric that's pissing people off probably just as much, because they don't know what the state's going to do. Is the state going to, give every black person in California $1.2 million? If so, where are they going to get the money? We already have like a $35 trillion estimated deficit for this year. So I kind of figured that, there's 15% black people in the United States. California has 40 million people times 15% times 1.2 million or something like that. That's another $7 billion. There's no money. Where's that money going to come from? And so the only thing you can think is, like right now, with houses over, I think it's $5 million in California, and there's tons of houses over $5 million, the state is imposing a 4.5% sales tax on top of that to help pay for the deficit that's coming. So pretty soon, if California is going to keep up with this far super liberal, give everybody in the world money, that just because, to buy votes and, because we need to, pretty soon, and businesses and middle class is just going to move out, because the middle class, they can't afford a house. Kids coming up today, when I got out of college in 1969, I graduated from UCLA in 69, everybody, with a degree in economics. I grew up in Encinitas, which is a beach town here in San Diego County. I could have got out of, when I graduated, instead of joining the Air Force to become a pilot, I could have came to San Diego, got a job for $12,000 a year, bought a house within half a mile of the beach for $65,000, and afforded it very nicely, and still owned, a 2 to 3 year old new hot rod muscle car every year, which is what I was doing anyway. Today, with no college debt, today you can't do any of those things, not even close. You get out of college, that depending on your degree, of course, and 70% of all degrees have no economic value. Let's say you're a typical guy getting out of college. What are you going to do in California? You're going to go work for Starbucks? Okay, I mean, there's a lot of those kind of jobs, entry-level jobs. What are you going to make, $35,000 a year? $40,000 a year? After tax, you can't even afford rent in San Diego County. A one-bedroom rents for $2,700. You can't even afford rent. That's why 50% of all people in their 30s are still living with their parents. So either you get out or you just live with your parents for the rest of your life. That's what it's come down to. And I know when I graduated college, of course, that was in the year when there was, still dinosaurs around. That when we went to college, people my age went to college. Nobody came home. Nobody came home. Last place you want to come is back home. You're out on your own. You're spreading your wings. You're out, chasing women and having fun with your friends. And if you're smart, you got a good job and you're making money and life is good. It's not good anymore, guys. So these kids are depressed. That's why they're taking so many friggin' drugs and killing themselves. And they're all whacked out on these I'm a victim woke ideas. But there's some substantiation for that because they can't make it. You can't make it. So times are 180 degrees different today than they were when I was growing up. Heck, my parents, when my dad was a Marine, fought in Okinawa, got back from World War II, high school education. So we're here in California. He started building homes on his own, little by little by little. And all of a sudden, and then, he became successful. He was making, when I was in high school, my dad was making about 50% more than everybody else. He was making $15,000 a year, and the average person was making, 10. So, just by relative to that, he was doing well. We always had a nice house. That mom didn't work. We had 2 cars. You can't do that anymore. You can't do that anymore, guys. I mean, wake up. This is the economic system we've created that if you don't have something right now, you better move someplace where you can afford to buy something because it's certainly not going to be in California.
What effect is massive illegal immigration likely to have on the economy?
I can't answer that. I don't know where these people are going. I mean, I live 40 miles from the border. I mean, San Diego's right on the border. I live up the coast 40 miles. If I lived, only 10 miles from the border, my house would be worth half as much as it is, up the coast. But I certainly don't, and we're right on the border town here. I don't see any evidence of all these people lined up at the border. Of course, I don't go down there, to check it out and see what's going on. But I understand San Diego is probably one of the toughest places to get across. So we're somewhat insulated here. So I don't see it. But if I was in Texas or Arizona and these people are coming in at, thousands per day, where are they going? And here's another thing. Now they're shipping them off to every place. They said, okay, there's no place for these people. We all got to be good humanitarians. So what do we do with them? Okay, college is out. College isn't in session now, okay? The dorms are empty. Let's move them into the dorms. Or high school's out. Let's move them into the gymnasiums. Or something else. Okay, is that a long-term fix? No. School's going to be in another 2 months. Then all these people are in our dorms, in our hotels, in our gymnasiums, and every place else that we don't want them to be. What are you going to do? You're going to kick them out? Where are you going to kick them out to? So it's a huge problem, everybody. And I'm just fortunate enough to be in an area that's, very, very insulated from all of that. So, but do I think about it? Yeah. And do I feel badly for all these people? Yeah. Should they be in the United States? No. Not unless they're U.S. citizens and they come in. My grandfather was an immigrant from Greece. He came over from Greece in a steamer ship. Okay, he went on Ellis Island or something and got indoctrinated and whatever they do to him over there, learned the English language. His last name was Michaelis. Michaelis. And you know what he did? Not only did he learn English, he Americanized his name to Michaels. Those were the old days, what people used to do. They wanted to be Americans. He didn't, even though he spoke Greek and English equally as well, and he loved Greece, he loved the United States more or he wouldn't be here. That's not the case anymore. These people show up and they're waving Mexican flags like, I love Mexico. Well, and I don't need to speak English. Here in California, all of a sudden you call somebody on the phone and they go, as opposed to instead of saying for Spanish, click 1, they go, hit 1, they go for English, hit 1. California's more than 50% Hispanic and they're catering to all these people, I mean, it's just a totally different world nowadays. So, and I don't know where this thing is going, but I know it's not going to end up in a good place. America is on the decline. Hey, I'm the biggest capitalist in the world, and, you'll never find me caving into anything. But nevertheless, I can see the writing on the wall. We've become lazy, we're overweight, and we're victims. That old school thing like my dad coming back from the war, I can do this. I can do this. And Dad knew how to make money and how to save money and how to use it well. And Dad always told me, don't ever buy anything other than real estate that you can't write a check for. That's old school. And I live by that rule. If I can't write a check for it, I don't buy it. I can't afford it. And I've bought plenty of new cars that I had second thoughts about. But, when you're married with kids, you go, okay, I'll buy the new car. But nothing ever, everybody needs to have a new car. We're all up-and-coming yuppies at that period of time in our life. But don't buy anything that you can't write a check for. We're way beyond that. We're so far beyond that, it's unbelievable. Today, what we're doing in this. People think you can borrow your way out of debt, or you can print your way out of debt. That's nonsense. You can't do it. Today, you have to be smarter. And are there things you can do to get ahead? Absolutely. But you have to be smart. You have to actually do it. You have to try. And there's no guarantees, but you got to give it a go. As opposed to this, well, I deserve a home. I deserve food. I deserve this. You don't deserve jack. You live here in the United States. That's the way it was way back, and that's the way it should be today. But not anymore. And so it's all going to come to a head, and it's all driven by the debt. The U.S. government right now, we're running national deficits minimum $2 trillion a year. That means $2 trillion more printed money, $2 trillion more of national debt, and it just keeps adding up. And as long as inflation keeps rising, which I expect it to do that, interest rates are going to keep going, and pretty soon servicing the national debt is going to be $1.5 trillion. And you know what that means? Do we have the money for that? No. Where's the money going to come from? We're going to create more debt, borrow more money to pay interest on the debt that we already can't afford. That's where the country's headed, guys.
Borrowing from your credit card to pay for your credit card.
Yeah. Especially with the U.S. government. See, you and I, normal human beings, mortals, we have limits. Pretty soon, all of a sudden, let's say you have a credit card limit of $50,000, and you make $100,000 a year. Is the credit card company going to let you go to get you up to $100,000 worth of credit card debt? No, they're going to cut you off. Now you're going to be into forced living within your means. The U.S. government doesn't have any limits on them, none whatsoever. So they can just keep printing, creating more debt until you see a green flash on the horizon. And that's the time that, cover your head, because here it comes.
Who are the 3%ers, and can they save the world?
Yeah, I'm one of the 3%ers. Everybody says, oh, you can't do anything, you can't do anything. And I say hogwash to that, because most people, they're being subsidized in some form by the government. Especially like 20% of the workers are government workers in the United States. And if you work for the government, unless you kill somebody, you can't lose your job. So that, they're set. And so is their productivity high or low? Super low. But there's 3%ers in here, and everybody says, oh, they're coming for you, and they're going to get you. You can't stop them. If only 3% of all Americans said, no way, Jose, you're not getting my guns, you're not going to tell me where to work, you're not going to tell me to do anything I don't want to do, that as long as it's legal right now. 3%ers that, you know what, and we'll stand up. We're ex-military. And who are the 3%ers? They're farmers. They're construction workers. They're ex-military. And they're just guys that are just friggin' badass guys that have said, don't tread on me. I'm not going to let this country go down the drain. And that's all it takes is 3%. And, you know, and interestingly, here in the United States, we own 50% of all the guns in the world. 50%. Try to take those away from us. Try to go in the Midwest and take those away from farmers or construction workers or ex-military or any other patriots that say, screw you. It's my constitutional right, you know, Second Amendment right, you know, to own a gun, and you're not going to take that from me. And we'll stand our ground. We'll stand our ground, especially when you get to be my age. The older you get, the less life in prison is a deterrent. But the way I think things are going to change, guys, the only way, there's only two ways to make things change in this country for the better. One is term limits. That's not going to happen because Congress has to vote on that, and they're not going to vote away the corruption that lets them come into office with a net worth of $500,000 and 30 years later leave with a net worth of, you know, $50 million. And the other way is to starve the beast. And the way you starve the beast is you hit them where it hurts, in their pocketbook, corporations. And you start by only spending money on things that you have to spend money on. In other words, you stop discretionary spending. Even though it's going to hurt a lot of people, that's the only way to get our country back. That you stop going out to eat. You stop going to bars. You stop going on vacations. You stop buying things you don't need with money you don't have. And pretty soon, all of a sudden, these revenues of some of these companies will just go into the tank. Their stocks will go into the tank. And who owns stocks? Rich people or poor people? Rich people. So that's what's going to happen. And now all of a sudden everybody's going to take notice, and you figure out we have the leverage. Yeah, I'm not going to spend money on. I'm not going to buy any Nike shoes. I'm not going to, I'm not going to buy anything from Starbucks or any of that. You know, am I going to buy Bud Light? No, I'm not going to buy Budweiser. And pretty soon we can just starve them to death, where they go, you know what? For everybody's sake, we have to change because you're going to be poor like the rest of the people. Because the stocks are going to collapse. And then maybe we can bring about change. But it's certainly not going to be on a political basis that this is going to happen. Stop joining the U.S. Navy, where they have drag queen recruiters. I mean, what is this world coming to? You have a drag queens trying to recruit people into the Navy SEAL program? You think that's going to be effective? No, nobody's going to join the Navy. I would have never joined the Air Force if they had drag queens at the recruiting office. You know, I never saw a drag queen in the cockpit when I was flying. No, in fact, when I was flying, there wasn't even a woman in the cockpit. That only started in 1990, and that really upset me at first because I always considered that to be a all boys club. But now I accept that. I'll let women fly airplanes. That's fine. I'm good with that. I still don't like them on construction sites. You know, because they're not strong enough, and I don't think they should be blacksmiths or loggers just because they can't handle it. But I love women as much as anybody. But there's certain professions that just require a level of strength that they don't inherently have, which disqualifies them for the job.
How important is the Second Amendment?
It's very important. Very important. You know what? That's going to be our last stand here in the United States. When they come for our guns, then the 3%ers are going to stand up, if not more. Nope, come and get them. Yeah, you want that job? You want that job, Jim? To come to Iowa, which is flyover state in the United States, where there's corn farmers, or Nebraska. You want that job to go into those farmers' homes and say you're here from the government and you demand that they give you all their guns? You're going to be dead, dude. I guarantee you're going to be dead. Or you're going to wish you'd be dead when one of those guys grabs you and turns you every way but loose. So I don't think it's going to happen. There'll be a fight. It'll turn into a revolution. That's what it will turn into. Which, I mean, even though we haven't had a good revolution in a long time, those things do happen. Those people have to stand up for themselves. Just like the American Revolution when we broke away from England. That was a revolution. So, we could have another. Nope. I stick by the Constitution and the rule of law. You're not going to change the Constitution. We're going to abide by the Constitution, everybody. And I'll die for it. Okay. So let's see what happens. And it's going to be a bloody mess.
What is the likelihood of a civil war in the U.S.?
It's probably higher than you think. Because, all it takes is the 3%ers to get it going. All it takes. The 3% of the people stood their ground. And those 3%ers are smart. They're not going to have a protest rally, down Main Street in St. Louis, Missouri. No, they're going to do it smart. They'll do it some way, it'll be like guerrilla warfare, like how North Vietnamese beat the U.S. in the Vietnam War. It was guerrilla warfare. They're not going head to head. They're hiding in bushes and all of a sudden shooting people unannounced. 3% is a lot of people. 3%, let's see, 330 million times 3%. That's, what is that, 10 million people? Yeah, 10 million people. That's a lot of people. You think we can't bring about change? Yeah, we will. And, if it's for the good of the country, my dad fought for this country. I fought for this country. You think I'm just going to give it up? No. I think, can it be saved? Will it ever be the same? Probably not. Probably not. We're a nation in decline. China's coming up. It's going to kick our ass. So, they're just the new guy on the street, and their economy is going to keep getting bigger and bigger. They got more people, but at least we can try to hold our own. Versus this, we're just like flushing ourselves down the toilet with these policies.
How important is it to have someone that lights your fire and motivates you?
Absolutely. One of our kids, 30 years old, he's been, in and out of, doesn't have a college education. He's a good kid. He's smart. And all of a sudden he's been in and out of like entry-level jobs. And finally he's working for this company and this outfit teaching kids at a Boys and Girls Club, and everybody loves him. And he said he wanted this job as a full-time teaching job at a school there where his income would have been increased by 40%. And so he started telling me about it. And he said, yeah, I said that maybe he's been at this job for like 6 months, 9 months. He said that maybe I'll be there, keep working, doing what I'm doing right now, and then, work for another 2 or 3 months, and then I'll ask him for that higher pay, that different job. And I said, Frank, ask him now. He goes, what do you mean, now, right now? You're qualified. Are you qualified? He goes, yes, ask him now. I said, promise me you're going to ask him this week. And so he asked him this week. He asked him that week. He got the job, and now he's working at a job where he makes much better job, making 40% more. And now I am so proud of him because I told him my own experiences and relayed it to him. I said, when I got out of college, I went to work for, after the Air Force, I went to work for the 3M company up in San Francisco, selling coffee machines. Now, I was doing fine. We had a 13-man sales crew, and I was number 2. And I'm a smart guy and a hustler. So I asked the company, I said, I don't want to sell coffee machines out of the back of a station wagon anymore on the hills of San Francisco. I want a better job. I want to be in marketing, and move my way up. And they said, well, you've only been in the company too. I said, I deserve it. And only because I was a big producer, they sent me back to St. Paul, Minnesota, and I talked to the guys in marketing, and I said, I want a better job. I want to be in marketing. And what they told me was this. They go, 3M is like so blue chip. They go, you've only been here 2 years, Mr. Campbell. We have people that have been here 10 years. And if we promoted you to this position above all these other people, they would be pissed off. So we're going to have to turn you down right now. Just keep doing what you're doing, and let's see what happens. So you know what I did? Guess what I did, Jim?
You quit.
And never looked back. And that's what I want Frank to do. I said, Frank, there's no downside to you asking for that job. None. And so I'm so proud of him. In fact, I'm even thinking now, you know what? I've showed him what energy and initiative will do. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't just keep using that and going, hey, okay, I'm good at what I'm doing right now, whether it's a year from now or 2 years from now, I want a better job. Ask for it. Or even go into business for himself. But it's that kind of initiative that gets you ahead in life. You have to ask for it. You have to ask for it. With a smile on my face, I like to tell people I'd still be a virgin if I never asked. And is that the way you go, guys? You got to ask for it. You have to ask for it. And you got to try stuff. Everybody wants to get ahead, but nobody's willing to try. You think the world's going to come to you? No, it's not. I'm sorry. It's not. And it's a dog-eat-dog out, that world. So be highly skilled at what you do and just keep reaching. Keep reaching. Will every reach be successful? No. But will they eventually be successful? You're damn right they will. But you got to be smart. You got to work hard. And you got to be smarter than the average bear. And he is. And so I'm so proud of him. I feel just so good because, that I'm the one that pushed him and kept kicking him in the ass, as he likes to say. He said, yeah, you just kept kicking me in the ass. And I go, right. I said, are you glad? And he goes, I'm really glad. And so here he is. And that's the way it is, guys. Either you get somebody to do it for you or help you, or that if you can't do it on your own, but at least do it.
Diet and brain power. Can some foods make you less smart?
Yeah, carbohydrates.
Yeah.
They make you less smart because they make you fat. They increase your waist size. And there's been study after study after study that's correlated obesity with waist size and mental acuity and size of your brain, which means mental acuity, that type of thing. And they're inversely correlated. So if you want to be smarter, and this is my health tip for everybody, if you want to be smarter, lose weight, get fit. And you lose weight by eating the right food. What are the foods? You eat low carbs, a lot of fat, and a lot of protein. Then exercise. You don't have to exercise like I do, but you can just go out and walk 5 miles a day. At my age, I just turned 76, and I amaze myself. Everybody talks about memory loss. They go, oh, I'm having a senior moment. I can't remember this, I can't remember that. My memory, Jim, is better than ever. I can remember stuff, and I amaze myself because it's in your brain. Now you need the mental acuity to access that information. So it's worth it, guys. Especially if you get older. You can't be and also that when you eat a low carb, high protein, high fat diet, it dramatically decreases your chances of getting Alzheimer's disease, dementia, and Parkinson's. There are so many benefits, you guys. And that for those of you that read, I want you to read a book that really tuned me into this. So many things I already knew, but pieces, parts of this, parts of that, but it tied it all together. And the name of the book is Grain Brain. Grain, brain. And essentially what you have to do, why it was named that, is that you got to get grains out of your system. You can't eat white bread. You can't eat bagels. You can't eat donuts. You can't eat Cheetos. You can't do any of that stuff. But then the benefits, both short-term and long-term, will blow your mind. They'll blow your mind. I mean, and, this, with my own self, I'm living proof of that. I've been doing that for the majority of my life, and I'm sitting here looking, going, I haven't lost a thing. As far as being able to do mathematics in my head or remember things and things like that. And it's just, I think I've maintained my, the health of my brain, through diet and exercise. Because people tend to lose that over time. So look that book up. Do yourself a favor, guys. Buy that book, Grain Brain. And then pay close attention to it, and I think you'll be happy you did.
Any other thoughts on health?
Keep taking zinc, guys. Another thing that's good for your brain is zinc. I don't know if that people that listen to me in the past about health, I tell them that my two favorite supplements are zinc and quercetin. Zinc has kept me, a daily dosage of zinc has kept me from having the flu for 25 straight years, and quercetin, that's like the gun that fires the zinc bullet into your system. And interestingly, this book, Grain Brain, zinc is one of the best supplements you can take for cranial health. It is. So it's got so many good uses. So, take your zinc, take your quercetin at a minimum. I mean, I don't take many supplements, guys, but those are two I never miss, and I take them every day. And I'm happy I am because I'm way, way healthier than most people my age. I'm way, way healthier than most people 20 years younger than me. Like my doctor at the Veterans Administration tells me, he says, Campbell, he goes, if all my patients were as healthy as you, I'd be out of business. So I go in for a physical every year, and nothing's wrong with me. We sit and talk about health and a lot of other things, and you know what? I mean, that's the way it ought to be. And you have to manage your health, and it pays super high dividends.
How can people find out more about your book and newsletter?
You can go to realestatetiming.com, realestatetiming.com. And I want to just plant a seed with you guys. I kind of have a very entrepreneurial, very capitalistic, stand-up-for-yourself kind of guy that most people can know that I'm that kind of guy. I'm working on a couple side hustles right now that are taking a lot of my time, but they are so empowering from the standpoint that I can stand up to forces that are believed to be bigger than me and prevail. And not only prevail in the win column, but prevail in the financial column. And I'm going to be writing a book about that. At the urge of our mutual friend, Tom Allen, he goes, I've shared some of this with him. He goes, Bob, this is amazing what you're doing. It's amazing. He said, you have to write a book about it. You have to. And so I am. And I want that book to be empowering, that you got to go for it, guys. You just can't have people tell you, I can't do this. You'll never know unless you try. And so you try. And sometimes you go, wow, look at what I'm pulling off. Because out there's not much competition, guys. And that's what I tell Frank. I said, look, you're in a system now where nobody works hard, nobody tries, and I said, you moving up the ladder, if you work hard and you're a smart guy and keep your nose clean and do a good job, you have no competition. You'll move way above them. And so, I mean, that's the motivation to do that. So, I'm engaging in new things too, because the only thing that's going to slow me down is 6 feet under the ground. That's it. That's it. I will not ever stop doing what I'm doing, advancing, keep walking forward, trying new things that are both empowering, that mentally, physically, but also financially. And I don't even care about the money. I don't need any more money. But it just happens to be that's a byproduct of this. You go, wow. They go, you're going to make a lot of money in this. And like I said, and what I told Tom, I said, Tom, do you think money's the most important to me what I'm doing? He goes, absolutely not. I know that. He said, you're just doing it to show people that you can do it, that you're the David up against the Goliath, and you're going to prevail. So I'm going to write a book about it, guys, and hopefully help a lot of you guys. Inspire you to do a lot of the things that I have done, am doing, along with health, and to be the best person you can possibly be.
Bob, thank you so much for chatting with us.
You're welcome, and talk to you again in a month, Jim. Bye.
My guest has been Robert Campbell, publisher of the realestatetiming.com newsletter. He was speaking to us from San Diego. And that wraps up our show for this week. We'd like to thank our guests, Ross Clark, Rick Ackerman, and Robert Campbell, and thank you for listening. If you have any questions for the show or our guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. Now stand by for a company showcase update from RecycLiCo CFO Shaheem Ali. I'm Jim Goddard. We'll be back next week with more This Week in Money.
Comments made on This Week in Money are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. This Week in Money is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated. Executive producer is Tom Allen. Welcome to Company Showcase, an advertising feature on HoweStreet.com.
I'm Jim Goddard. I'm speaking with Shaheem Ali, CFO of RecycLiCo. Welcome back to Company Showcase.
Thank you, Jim.
Shaheem, you've just returned from a trip to Fiji. Was that business or pleasure?
That was a pleasure trip, mostly to spend time with my mom. Firstly, Jim, thank you for having me. Zako is away today, so I get to fill in. I was in Fiji spending special moments with my mother. Unfortunately, as life is designed, we don't have our parents forever. I don't know if you know this, Jim, but Fiji is a very small island nation in South Pacific. It's mainly known for its hot and humid climate like Hawaii. So if you don't like Hawaii, go to Fiji. I was amazed when I was there in Fiji last year and compared to this year. EV in a country of only 1 million people. I mean, there's so many EVs around, and it's only 1 million people in Fiji. I imagine this can only be great news for battery and battery recycling industry. You know, sometimes I joke to people, I say, simply if I can put it together, in future, batteries will be dying to do business with us. As for what is happening at RecycLiCo, I wanted to assure everyone that we are actively engaged in joint venture and technology licensing types of business arrangements. Now, this has been a number one task on our list, and we do focus and make sure that we are at it every week, every month, day in and day out. You know, from our last, was in March, I think we went to Korea. In Korea trip, and after the validation of our material by the Korean cathode manufacturer, we have seen increased interest and mostly trust in our technology. You know, that's how it works over there. The battery production sector is mostly outside of North America, so it becomes very important for us that we take the time to have these discussions. You know, make sure the products are validated by them 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, so be it. And these conversations take time. You know, what this means that conversations we are having requires much more understanding and knowledge of how business is done in Asia. That's just overall, that's how it works. You know, we must make sure that legal and business framework is in place to ensure that our IP is protected. And, you know, mostly that recyclable technology will be commercialized. You know, so we are working with legal and financial advisors to guide us through these processes. Now, just this week, you probably saw the press release we did this week. You know, we added Dr. Ihan Pak from Asia to RecycLiCo Advisory Board to assist in Asian market business development and talks. I mean, we met him a few times. We talk regularly. He's pretty good at it. You know, if you look at it, you know, it's just an exciting moment to have Dr. Pak added to our board. He brings extensive business arrangement knowledge. He has worked with companies like Dow Chemicals, Samsung SDI, and a few more, and at executive level too. You guys can all read a full press release on our website and has more details on him. From the demonstration plant, I was there this week. We are preparing to run the demonstration plant from unit operation to full cycle operation. Right now, the plan is to start next week. We are preparing for it, and the plan is to run it 24 hours a day in a full cycle mode. What does this mean? From company's perspective, this is great news for us. This will allow us to stress test and measure the performance, the versatility of all the equipment under full cycle continuous operation. This will make sure that the equipment and the processes perform to standard that we set out, you know, running full cycle 24 hours a day. At the same time, we will be producing lots of lithium hydroxide and precursors. Overall market has been painful for most of us. You know, seeing the stock price at 35 cents adds more pain. I get it. I hear you all when we get these phone calls. And I'm not going to make any excuses here, but I do believe this month has been partly due to stock options coming due on June 8th. So there's some selling and some volume on the exchange related to the stock option exercise. You know, at the same time, I do stay in touch with a lot of the investment banking community that we, you know, have relationships with. Times are tough out there in the money market. To raise money in this recessionary and volatile environment is becoming difficult every month as we go forward with the interest rate hikes. I mean, you are probably aware that many public companies that have ventured into battery material space have run into financial constraints or are slowing down. They are burning through cash, and it's hard to raise money in these times. You know, just in the last 30 days, I think 3 companies that have come and, you know, made press release that they're running into some difficulties out there. As a CFO, I make sure that we continuously monitor our cash flow and budget as market conditions and the facts change. I mean, that's my job here. And we will be releasing our Q3 financials, MD&A, in June, and I will include more information for they all. As to what else is happening in June, we are staying focused on joint venture and technology licensing talks. These things take time, but work needs to be done here. Next month, which is just around the corner, during the month of June, we do plan to be at a couple battery-related events and investment conference. This is always very important for us to stay connected to the EV industry, materials industry, and attract new shareholders. Once we know which one, we will be posting the details on our social networks. Jim, finally, on behalf of RecycLiCo family, I wanted to express my gratitude to honor the veterans in U.S. A patriot's blood is the seed of freedom's tree. Enjoy your Memorial Day holiday. Until next time, I hope you all have a nice weekend and a warm summer.
Shaheem, for people who need more information about RecycLiCo and want to know where you're traded, where can they go?
RecycLiCo is a battery materials company focused on recycling, upcycling lithium-ion battery waste. You can connect with us on our website, RecycLiCo.com. We are a publicly listed company in Canada, TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol AMY, in US on OTCQB under the symbol AMY.V, and on Frankfurt Exchange under the symbol ID4.
Shaheem, thank you so much for the update.
Thank you.
My guest has been Shaheem Ali, CFO of RecycLiCo. I'm Jim Goddard. Our conversation took place on May 26th.
Comments made on Company Showcase are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at HowStreet.com. Company Showcase is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.